My name is Eudora. I am 32 years old. I hadn't even taken off my coat when my mom said something to me. She was standing near the Christmas tree holding a glass with some sparkling drink in it. She didn't even look at me. Her eyes were on my little baby, like my daughter was a stranger, like she didn't belong in her house. "Why did you come to Christmas?" she asked. Not like she was surprised or happy to see us, but like she was upset and had the right to tell me I shouldn't be there. My baby, who was just 9 months old, had just woken up from the car ride. Her cheeks were red from the cold and her tiny hand was holding my scarf. She wasn't crying or upset. She was just looking around quietly, trying to understand the lights, the smells, and the new voices. But none of that mattered to my mom. "You're making people uncomfortable with your baby," she said, like it was a fact that everyone already agreed with. I just stood there holding my baby with one arm and a big shopping bag full of gifts in the other. My back hurt from sitting in the car for so long, and my body was still sore from a problem I had last week while breastfeeding. I was tired from being a new mom. I hadn't expected much. I just wanted a normal Christmas, a few hours where someone might smile at my daughter and say her name. But even that was too much for them. My dad didn't even look up from the football game. When he finally spoke, he smirked and said, "She's right. Sit this one out." It wasn't just the words. It was how easy they said them. They sounded like they had been waiting for a chance to remind me where I belonged in the family. But before I continue, hit the subscribe button and tell me where you watching this from, and what time of day is it. I was holding my baby and a bag of carefully wrapped presents. I had spent 3 days picking them out. I imagined the faces of my nephew and niece, chose colors and sizes, and folded the paper carefully. I thought maybe my effort could make me feel like I belonged. No one offered to take my bag. No one asked if we were okay. My sister Isolde came in from the kitchen. She had already had 2 drinks and looked at me like I had brought something dirty into the house. One of her kids was on the floor playing with a new iPad, probably from me if last year was the same. She didn't say hi. She just looked at my baby and then back at me like she was daring me to get upset. I held my baby closer, feeling her warm breath on my neck. And I realized something I didn't want to admit. They weren't uncomfortable with my baby. They were uncomfortable because I wasn't easy for them to control. A baby meant I couldn't just sit there and take their insults quietly. A baby meant I had limits. A baby meant I had something more important than them, and they didn't like that. So I said calmly, "If I'm not welcome, that's fine. But this is the last time I will do this." My mom blinked like she didn't understand. Isolde scoffed. My dad chuckled like I was being silly. I looked straight at them and said it again without showing emotion, because showing feelings was what they expected and they always used it against me. "If you don't want me or my daughter here, then I will stop giving you money." That made them quiet for a moment. Then they laughed, but it wasn't happy laughter. It was mocking laughter, like they were watching a kid threaten to leave. My dad clapped once. Isolde leaned against the doorway and said something about postpartum hormones, like my setting a boundary was just a problem in my body. My mom muttered that I always needed attention, like driving 2 hours with a baby was just me trying to show off. They said these things in the same tone they always used when they wanted me to feel small. But I didn't react. I didn't argue or defend myself. I just said it again slowly so there could be no mistake. "You will not get another dollar from me." Then I explained everything clearly, not as a threat, but as something that would actually happen. No more help with their mortgage, no more school tuition, no more emergency money, no more groceries, no more ballet lessons, braces, car bills, rent, or insurance. My baby moved against me and I kissed her forehead without thinking, because the room felt cold, not because of the snow outside. "You've all lived off me like parasites for years while making me feel like I'm the one causing problems," I said. I walked into the living room and put the bag of presents on the floor by the fireplace. For a second I almost laughed at myself. It felt like I was leaving a part of my old life behind. I picked up my diaper bag and headed for the door. Isolde followed, her voice sharp. "You're really leaving? You're going to ruin Christmas over a baby tantrum that hasn't even happened?" I didn't answer. I didn't give her words to twist. Outside, snow was falling heavily. The roads were getting worse, but I wasn't staying. I'd rather risk sliding in the snow than stay and pretend their behavior was normal. The drive home was quiet. My baby quickly fell asleep, her pacifier moving with each breath. The dashboard lights made her face look soft and peaceful. I looked at her every few minutes, not because I was worried she'd wake, but because seeing her reminded me why I didn't cry. I knew this would happen. When we finally got home, it was almost midnight. Snow had piled up on the walkway. I carried her inside, kissed her forehead, and put her in the bassinet. Then I sat on the edge of my bed, still wearing my sweater, still sore, staring at the empty space where the bag of gifts had been. I realized I hadn't even labeled the presents with names. I had memorized each one, who it was for and what I thought when I bought it, as if knowing them by heart meant I belonged. I thought maybe they'd open them and feel something. But deep down I knew they wouldn't. No one had said my daughter's name all night. For the first time I didn't want them to. Later, after I fed her and watched her fall asleep with her tiny fingers holding mine, I whispered a promise I hadn't realized I was carrying for years. "You're never going to grow up thinking that kind of love is normal," I told her softly. "I promise you that." The next morning it was so quiet it felt fake. My family hadn't called or texted. No missed calls, nothing. You'd think I hadn't spent 3 days picking out gifts or driven through snow just to be told I wasn't welcome. I sat with my lukewarm coffee, watching my daughter smear mashed banana across her high chair tray, and realized I had done something I couldn't take back. Not just leaving, but saying the truth about the money and how they had been taking from me while making me feel guilty. I meant every word. But the silence still hurts. I didn't expect an apology. I wasn't surprised they didn't reach out. I was surprised at how fast they moved on, like I didn't exist as soon as I stopped being useful. By evening I stopped checking my phone and turned it off. That night I fed my daughter mashed carrots, gave her a bath and watched her fall asleep, her tiny fingers holding mine. She looked so peaceful, and I whispered again, more to myself than her, that she would never think love comes with conditions. The next morning there was a knock. Not a small knock like someone leaving a package, but loud and repeated. Someone believed this door belonged to them. My baby was still asleep. I walked across the cold floor and cracked the door open, ready to slam it shut. My whole family was on my porch. My mom held a Tupperware container like she wanted to make peace. Her face tried to look reasonable. My dad had his cap low, half closing his eyes like he couldn't care. Isolde stood in the back with her arms crossed, the twins throwing snowballs at each other like it was a normal weekend. Her husband sat in the van with the engine running, like he wasn't planning to stay long. I didn't say anything. I just opened the door wider, wanting to see what they thought they were doing. A small part of me hoped maybe they came for the right reason. They came in like it was nothing. My mom made a show of taking off her boots like she had manners, then walked straight into the kitchen and put the container on the counter without asking. My dad sat on the couch and turned on the TV like he had paused a show. Isolde didn't even look at me. I watched them move around my house. The twins ran around laughing, throwing snow all over the floor. My mom tried to arrange the food on the counter, but she didn't say a word. My dad just sat looking bored like he had nothing better to do. Isolde leaned against the wall, sipping her drink, eyes flicking to me once in a while, like she was checking if I would explode. I stood there holding my baby, feeling the weight of her against me. She was quiet, just curious, looking at all the lights and the new smells, completely unaware of the tension in the room. I kissed the top of her head and reminded myself why I had left them before, why I had made the choice to say what needed to be said. This time it wasn't about gifts or appearances. It wasn't about being polite or pretending everything was fine. It was about my baby, about protecting her from a kind of love that is wrapped in demands and conditions. She would never know what it felt like to be manipulated by people who were supposed to care. Not while I was with her. I made tea for both of us, keeping my movements slow and calm. Every sound in the house, the ticking clock, the hum of the fridge, the footsteps of my family, felt louder than usual. But I didn't flinch. I didn't respond to their smirks or muttered complaints. I simply sat and let them be, letting my baby rest against me. After a while, they seemed to realize that I wasn't going to react, that I wasn't going to give them the fight they expected. The laughter that had once mocked me earlier was gone. Now there was only silence. A tense silence, like the air itself, was waiting for me to break first. But I didn't. My daughter stirred and yawned, tiny arms stretching out. I held her close, whispering softly about things she would never have to worry about. Love, I promised her, would never be something she had to earn by being useful or convenient. It would be unconditional. That promise, made in the quiet moments, felt more powerful than anything I could have shouted at my family. She was already on her phone, her thumbs moving fast like my living room was just a place to wait while she did something else. It took them 5 minutes to get comfortable. And in those 5 minutes I realized something that made my stomach feel funny, almost sick. They weren't nervous. They weren't embarrassed. They weren't here to fix anything. They were here to make everything feel normal again, like Christmas had never happened. Then they started speaking. Their voices were soft, careful, like actors in a play. My mom said, "We were wrong," while wiping down my counter like she was helping. My dad muttered, "I didn't mean it like that," while looking at his phone. Isolde, my cousin, added, "It wasn't personal. You were just emotional." They kept calling me that. Emotional, like my feelings were the problem and not all the years they made me feel like I owed them something for existing. They moved quickly into the part they had clearly practiced. They wanted to make things right, start fresh. They missed their granddaughter. They wanted to spend New Year's together. My mom smiled and said she had already bought new decorations. Isolde said her husband could pick us up. My dad offered to shovel my driveway. Little things that they probably thought could erase all the hurt from before. For a few minutes I sat there holding my daughter. I listened, nodded at the right moments, pretending to think about what they were saying. That was the hardest part. They were really good at this. They knew exactly how to sound like family. They knew which words to use, which promises to make, how to soften their voices so I would doubt myself. And underneath all of it, I could feel the real reason they were there. The thing they never said out loud but showed in every sentence. My parents needed money. Isolde's son needed help with school again. My mom's car was making a weird noise. Gas prices were up. Groceries too. They were circling the money like it was a fire they didn't know how to light without me. That night, after they had eaten my food and used my bathroom and acted like nothing had happened, they went to sleep. My dad slept on the couch, Isolde in my guest room, my mom in the rocking chair with a blanket, still holding her tea like she was the victim. The house was too quiet for how many people were in it. I walked down the hallway and felt my chest tighten with something I couldn't name yet. Around midnight, I found my mom's purse in the bathroom. She left it on the sink. Her phone screen was lit up from a recent message. I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. The preview was right there, bright and easy to read. It was from Isolde. Said, "Told you she'd fold. He always does." My hands went numb. I stared at the words until they stopped looking like letters and started looking like a bruise. Fold, like I was paper, like I was predictable, like my boundaries were something they could wait out. I walked into the living room and looked at all of them snoring, curled up cozy in the home they didn't even pretend to respect. And for the first time in my life I felt something colder than the snow outside. They hadn't come to apologize. They came because they were losing their ATM and they thought I would never notice. When they left the next morning, it was like they had never been there at all. My kitchen still smelled faintly like the leftovers my mom brought, but that was it. No note, no thank you. Just an empty guest bed, a half-used roll of toilet paper in the bathroom, and a wine glass in the sink with lipstick I didn't recognize. They were gone before my daughter even finished her breakfast. My mom mumbled something about calling soon. Isolde forced a smile and reminded me casually that her son's tuition was due again next week, like she was reminding me to grab milk on the way home. My dad didn't even look up from his phone as he stepped into their SUV. I stood in the doorway holding my daughter against my chest and watched them drive off. The tail lights disappeared down the street like nothing had happened. I shut the door slowly and leaned my back against it. Something inside me stopped. Not cracked, not broken, just stopped. I slid down onto the floor right there in the hallway and sat for 20 minutes without moving. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even sad. I was tired in a way that went deeper than sleep, deeper than being really, really tired. The kind of tiredness that comes from carrying a weight for so long you forget it's optional. By noon I had my bank app open. I hovered over the scheduled payments I had set up months ago. Mortgage help for my parents, the prepaid balance for Isolde's kids' school, my dad's insurance, everything I had been quietly paying for the last year and a half. I didn't cancel them yet. I stared at the numbers, hoping maybe they would rearrange themselves into something that made sense. I told myself maybe they really were sorry. Maybe they were just clumsy. Maybe I was being too harsh. That thought lasted until my phone rang. It was Aunt Zephra. We weren't close. She was my dad's older sister, widowed, no kids. The kind of woman who sent birthday cards with perfect handwriting and left family gatherings early without explanation. When I answered, her voice was calm but heavy, like she had been carrying something she didn't want to carry anymore. She asked if I was alone. I told her yes. She asked if she could tell me something she had heard. I said yes. She didn't ease into it. She told me she had stopped by my parents' house the day after Christmas to drop off a box of dishes. Nothing serious. But when she walked in, they were laughing. Not just laughing, but laughing about me. My mom called me hysterical. My dad said I thought they needed me, but I would come crawling back. Isolde joked that I was broke emotionally, not financially, and that was the worst because I would crack first. Zephyr said they talked openly about it like they were planning a weekend trip. They said they'd give me a few days, then show up, act sorry, bring the kids because that always works, and get me back where they wanted me. My dad said, "We've got her wrapped." Wrapped. That word hit harder than everything else. Wrapped like a package, wrapped like a thing, wrapped like I was something they could put back in place when it suited them. Zephyr paused on the phone, then said she almost didn't call me. She didn't want to get involved, but after hearing how sure they were, how confident they were that I would fold, she couldn't ignore it. She said she had always known they leaned on me, but she hadn't realized how deep it ran, how cruel it had become. I thanked her. That was all I could say. When we hung up, I went straight back to my bank app. I didn't hover this time. I canceled everything. Mortgage assistance gone, school tuition canceled, car insurance revoked, grocery cards turned off, phone plans shut down, emergency transfers ended, every string they could pull. I cut them all. Then I blocked every number. My mom, my dad, Isolde, her husband. Within an hour, the calls started from unknown numbers. "Hey, what's going on? Pretty sure the bank glitched. You didn't mean to cancel all that, right?" Then came the guilt. "How could you do this to your own family? You're punishing the kids. This is unfair. You're overreacting." I didn't answer. By evening, the tone shifted. Isolde sent a long message from a new number reminding me who was there for me when my husband left. My dad sent a single line, "You're on a power trip." Then silence. I stood in my living room holding my baby, watching her reach up for the ceiling fan like it was magic. And I realized something that made me straighten my spine. They hadn't underestimated me. They had forgotten who they were dealing with. The next morning, Isolde left 2 voicemails from another new number. The first started with, "Hey, I think there's a glitch with the bank," and ended with, "Call me ASAP." The second was sharper. By noon, my mom was emailing me from 3 different accounts, all versions of the same message. Confused, concerned, family is forever. Don't let one fight ruin everything. She reminded me again that I was emotional. She reminded me that they tried. I didn't reply. I was sitting at my kitchen table drinking tea when another message came in. This one was from Isolde's husband. He said he didn't want to get involved, but I should know my mom was losing it, talking about lawyers saying I stole from the family. That's when it really hit me. They weren't just upset. They were panicking. For the first time in years, they weren't in control. That afternoon, I started getting messages from people I barely knew. "Hope you're okay. We should talk. Your mom's not well. You're hurting everyone with this stunt." I turned my phone off. Instead of spiraling, I logged into every other account I had ever connected to them. Utilities, medical subscriptions, school emergency contacts, grocery balances. I removed my name from all of it. I even called the school office and told them I was no longer the financial contact for Isolde's twins. They didn't ask why. Then I opened a spreadsheet. 2 years of transactions. Gift cards, mortgage top-ups, last-minute rent checks, car repairs, therapy bills, medications, streaming services. It added up to more than I made the year I graduated college. I stared at the total until it stopped feeling like just numbers. I hadn't been helping them. I'd been paying for their lives. Around 3, the doorbell rang. No one was there. Just a box on my welcome mat with my name written in black marker. Inside was a framed photo from Christmas 3 years ago. Me on the floor laughing with one of the twins. Taped to the back was a note, "You were happy once. That's the version of you we miss. Think about that before you ruin what's left." No signature, just manipulation wrapped in nostalgia. I put the photo face down on the counter and turned on every light in the house. That night, I moved my daughter's crib into my bedroom. I didn't think they'd do anything reckless, but I also didn't trust them not to. While scrolling aimlessly, I saw a vague post from an old family friend about people forgetting who raised them. My mom's name appeared in the comments 3 times. She was spreading her story already. I leaned back on the couch and smiled because she had no idea how much worse it was about to get for them. It started quietly, the way real consequences always do. Not with shouting or dramatic confrontations, but with small systems failing all at once. The first alert came from my email, a generic notification I almost ignored because it looked like spam. Isolde's credit card payment had been declined at a dentist's office. I knew it immediately because the account was still tied to my email from when I had helped her set it up the previous summer. It was for one of the twins, a routine cleaning I had been quietly paying for months without saying a word. Less than 5 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a message from a number I did not know. I had never seen this number before. The message said, "Hope you're happy." They had to change plans. The twins felt embarrassed. I stared at the last word for a long time. Embarrassed. Not ashamed that she had laughed behind my back. Not embarrassed about the tricks they played. Embarrassed because the money stopped. Felt strange reading that word. It was like they thought the only important thing was money, not how people were treated. That hurt, but it also helped me see the truth. An hour later, my mom emailed me again. This time it was just one sentence. "We're all very disappointed in you." I did not open it. I did not need to. I knew exactly what it would say. I saved it in a folder where it could not bother me and moved on. I could feel things starting to change. My family was not angry anymore. They were starting to fall apart because the thing they had always counted on, the control they had over me, was gone. Soon after that, I found out that a sold school payment did not go through. I learned this when the school office called me. They thought it was a mistake because I was still listed as the person who pays. I told them calmly to remove my name from everything. I said it without fear, without worry. The woman on the phone didn't ask questions. She just said she would take care of it. That was it. That evening, my dad finally reached out. He used a new number, probably a secret one, and left a voicemail. At first, it almost sounded normal if you didn't know him very well. He said things had gone too far. He said he didn't agree with everything my mom and Isolde had done. He said I was making a big deal out of nothing. Then he said he missed his granddaughter. He asked me to call him just to talk, just to see if we could work something out. I listened to the message twice. Not once did he say he was sorry. Not once did he mention Christmas. Not once did he ask how I was holding up as a new mother. He just wanted things to go back to how they were before. After that, the smear campaign started. A friend I both knew messaged me saying she didn't want trouble, but my mom had been talking. She was telling people I had become cold, that I was being mean to the family, that I might be having a breakdown. I read it without surprise. It still hurt, but not because it was true. It hurt because I knew my mom believed I could be like that. That was how little she trusted me to know my own mind. I replied with a simple thank you and closed the chat. A few minutes later, another message came in. Aunt Zephyr had posted something online. The message said, "You should see it." I opened Facebook and felt my chest tighten. Zephyr had not said anyone's name. He didn't need to. She wrote about watching someone give and give until there was nothing left. She wrote about families thinking that giving means someone owes something back. About how staying silent can make it seem like you are helping when really it is hurting. And she wrote about how sometimes the strongest thing a person can do is walk away. The comments came in quickly. People said thank you. People shared their own stories. Some of them had liked my mom's vague post just a few days ago, but now they were quiet or liking Zephyr's words instead. That was comforting to me. I felt a little less alone. That night, my mom sent one last email from a fourth account. She wrote, "This doesn't have to go any further. Let's not air dirty laundry. You're not this person. You're better than this." I stood in my living room holding my daughter. I read the email over and over. I realized something I hadn't fully accepted until then. They hadn't just been living off my money. They had built an entire story about me, a version they could control. Endless giver, endless forgiver, always available. They didn't love me. They loved the person they could use. And now that person is gone. I replied with one sentence. "You used me and then you laughed about it. We're done." I hit send, blocked the email, and closed my laptop. There was no apology, no explanation, just silence. And somewhere deep inside, I knew they were scrambling because without me, everything they had relied on was falling apart. Bills piled up. Their story about me no longer matched the real version of me that they could no longer reach. The silence lasted 3 days. No calls, no messages, not even another secret number. They wanted me to feel guilty, to doubt myself, to think maybe I had gone too far. But this time it did not work. I was already past guilt and fear. I could finally see clearly. They didn't miss me. They missed access to me. On the 4th day it snowed again. I heard a knock at the door and opened it slowly, more out of habit than fear. It wasn't a delivery. It was Aunt Zephyr. Her husband stood behind her holding a casserole dish under his coat. Behind him were my cousins carrying grocery bags and a wrapped box with my daughter's name on it. I didn't say anything at first. Zephyr smiled gently and said, "We figured you probably haven't had a break in a while." They came in without asking for anything, no speeches, no rules. They played with my daughter on the floor until she laughed herself tired. Zephyr made tea and asked if I needed help with laundry. We ate together. Nothing fancy, just warm food and quiet talking. When I finally asked why she came, she didn't pretend. She said family isn't supposed to have rules like that. She was wrong for staying quiet all these years. Before they left, she told me my mom had called her furious, saying she had poisoned me and trying to take her out of the family. Zephyr told her the truth. The only thing keeping that family together had been me, and I had finally walked away. That night, I sat in the nursery watching my daughter sleep, one tiny hand curled around her blanket. I opened the gift box. Inside were handmade toys, a framed photo, and a card in Zephyr's handwriting. "You're not alone. Not anymore." For the first time since Christmas, I slept all night. No guilt, no second-guessing, just peace. The quiet after that felt different. It wasn't heavy or scary. It felt settled, like dust finally stopping after a long storm. I woke the next morning to sunlight on the nursery wall and my daughter babbling to herself. She didn't know that something big had changed in our lives. I picked her up, breathed in that warm baby smell, and felt a strange kind of certainty. Nothing was chasing me anymore. Days passed without interruptions. No new numbers, no emails, no friends reporting things. My parents and Isolde had gone quiet, not because they understood, but because they had no moves left that didn't make them look worse. Control only works when the other person wants something from you. I didn't want anything. And that was the part they never planned for. I went back to routines I had forgotten. Morning walks with the stroller even when it was cold. Cooking real meals instead of grabbing whatever was fastest. Leaving my phone in another room without worry, without that constant low-level fear that someone would need something from me. The house felt lighter. Even my daughter seemed different, calmer, like she could feel the absence of tension the way animals do before humans notice. About a week later, I ran into an old neighbor at the grocery store. She smiled warmly and asked how my parents were doing. It didn't hurt to answer anymore. I said simply that we weren't in touch. She nodded like she understood more than she said and changed the subject. That was the moment I realized the story my family told about me didn't matter to anyone outside their circle. People see what they are ready to see. Some of them had been waiting for me to stop pretending. A few days after that, a final email came before I locked everything down completely. It was from my dad. Short, controlled, almost polite. He said he didn't recognize me anymore. That family shouldn't be handled like business. That someday I would regret this. I read it once, felt nothing, and saved it without replying. He was right about one thing. I didn't recognize myself anymore, and that was the point. That night, I stood in the nursery again, rocking my daughter while the house went quiet. I thought about the version of me who drove through the snow to Christmas, aching and hopeful, still believing effort could buy safety. I thought about how carefully I wrapped those gifts, how much of myself I gave to every obligation. I felt a wave of sadness for her, but it wasn't regret. It was compassion. I kissed my daughter's forehead and whispered something different. Not a promise made in anger or fear, but one rooted in clarity. I told her she would grow up knowing what love looks like when it isn't about paying back or earning anything. That she would never have to earn her place in a room. That walking away doesn't mean failing. Sometimes it means finally choosing yourself. I didn't rebuild bridges. I didn't send updates or make peace. I let the distance be. Some relationships don't need closure talks. They end the moment you stop taking part in the lies that hold them together. My family lost access to me, and in losing that, they lost the version of me they depended on. What they did with that loss wasn't my responsibility anymore. One afternoon weeks later, I took the card Aunt Zephyr left and pinned it inside the closet door where I would see it every morning. "You're not alone. Not anymore." It reminded me that family can be chosen. That love can show up quietly without rules or debts. It reminded me I didn't destroy anything. I stepped out of something that was destroying me. And for the first time in my adult life, the future didn't feel like something I had to manage for everyone else. It felt open. It felt honest. It felt like mine. I started noticing little things I had missed before. The way the sunlight came through the windows in the morning. The way my daughter's laughter could fill a room without anyone saying a word. The smell of fresh bread cooking in the oven. Even the sound of the wind outside felt different. It felt peaceful. I realized that my life didn't have to be a constant struggle to keep everyone else happy. I started taking long walks in the park with my daughter. Sometimes we would stop and watch the birds. Sometimes we would kick leaves on the ground. I didn't rush. I didn't have to. I could be present. I began cooking meals that made me happy. Simple meals, but meals that smelled good, tasted good, and made my home feel like home. I even started planting little flowers outside. The world felt softer, calmer, and somehow more mine. I also noticed my daughter growing in ways I hadn't seen before. She started saying little words, making little connections, laughing at her own jokes. I realized that when you remove stress, even little humans can thrive. It was during these small moments, watching her tiny hands explore the world, that I understood something very important. Choosing yourself doesn't mean being selfish. Choosing yourself means giving yourself the chance to live fully, and when you do that, you can love others better too. I began to smile more. Not the nervous, hiding kind of smile, but the real smile that comes from feeling safe and free. I laughed in ways I hadn't laughed in years. I remembered what it felt like to just be me. I started thinking about what a real family could look like. Not the family that wanted to control me or use me or make me feel guilty, but the family that shows up quietly, that cares without asking for anything in return, that loves without conditions. Aunt Zephyr had shown me that. Sometimes I still feel a little pang when I remember my old family and what they did. But the pang is no longer heavy. It's a reminder of how far I've come. I tell my daughter stories now about love that is kind, gentle, and giving, not love that comes with rules or debts. I tell her about honesty, courage, and standing up for herself. I tell her about choosing the right people to be around. And most importantly, I tell her that walking away doesn't mean failing. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes walking away is what helps you grow and keeps your heart safe. Every morning when I see that card in the closet, I remember Aunt Zephyr's words. You're not alone. Not anymore. And I feel a little smile grow in my heart. Because it's true. I am not alone. I have a daughter. I have chosen my family. I have chosen myself. For the first time in a very long time, the future feels wide and open. I don't have to manage everyone else's problems. I don't have to bend myself into someone I'm not. I can live my life. I can love without fear. I can rest without guilt. I know there will still be challenges. Life is never perfect. But now I face those challenges with strength, with love, with clarity. And every night when I rock my daughter to sleep, I whisper to her, you are safe. You are loved. You are free. And I mean it. The snow outside continues to fall sometimes, but it no longer feels like a trap or a burden. It feels like a blanket over the world. A quiet, soft blanket that reminds me that I can rest, that I can breathe, that I can finally be myself.